Big meeting last night, Butler County, Lakota East High School. Roughly 250 parents ended up attending the meeting, detailing the $12.2 million budget cuts that the school district is going to go through. And, you know, when I was reading the articles about last night, what happened, they hear these parents complaining about this. I mean, what do you want? First of all, you know it's coming. You know, and I don't think there's any shock. I don't think that anybody that voted for the levies, against the levies last year, are now at the meeting going, well, I didn't realize things would be cut. I think you got people still saying, I voted against the levy, and I'm willing to suck this up. Or you got people that voted for the levy that are saying, this is just horrible, see? I don't think anybody's changing their mind in this. When I read the articles, it's annoying to hear all the parents complaining about it. The sky is falling. The superintendent said it's critical that they pass the levy this fall, or they may be looking at reducing to state minimums. Okay, state minimums. Cool, great. We don't have the money. What do you want to do? What do you want those people that are out of jobs in the Lakota district to do? Tax themselves even more? Go in even more debt? I understand that you people that have been elected to positions and don't understand that money is earned, people have to go out and make it, think that it grows on trees or there's a money fairy or something like that, and you're okay with quite often going into debt. You don't see the problem with that. But for the average family, that's a bit of a problem for them. Looks like they'll have part of these cuts, the idea they've laid out, in addition to the 6,400 students that lost busing in January, there'll be fewer teachers, larger class sizes. I don't know why that's a problem. People were quite successful learning in America many years ago when they had fewer teachers and larger class sizes. In fact, our education hasn't improved since we have shrunk class sizes and have more teachers. There will be higher fees for athletics, fewer learning specialists, and fewer electives. Why is fewer electives a problem? Go learn the basics. It's an elective. It's a bonus. When you have money and things are going great, fine, offer electives. After that, if you don't have the money, you got to cut them. We'll dive into some more of the cuts in Lakota, take some of your calls coming up. Also, school choice coming up, 10:06 on 700 WL. How does school choice play into the whole debate on public employee unions, collective bargaining, as we move forward and figure out what we're going to do with the teachers in the state of Ohio? And, of course, there are some changes now with SB 5, which we'll get to in a few minutes. How does school choice play into that mix? Andrew Campanella joins me now. He's the co-author of Hope for America's Children, School Choice Yearbook 2010-2011, and also part of the Alliance for School Choice. How are you, Andrew?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
How does school choice play into this whole thing? Are the unions opposed to school choice?
Well, I really do think that teachers themselves are not opposed to school choice. If you look at the statistics and you look at the public opinion polling, you'll see that the majority of public school teachers actually support school choice. The unions don't. And I've always thought that the reason they don't is because they're afraid that if they have to debate, that it's easier to debate vouchers and school choice than it is to debate collective bargaining. So they fight the battles that they think they can win, which are fights against charter schools, teacher quality reforms, school vouchers, so that they don't have to fight a battle about collective bargaining, although we've seen that fight come up now.
I think it plays very well into getting rid of collective bargaining and you know, the whole discussion, because school choice is about freedom. It's about competition and saying, if you create systems where people can choose where their kids go to school, of course, they're going to make probably the choice of the better school or the better programs, which forces the other schools then to say, hey, we better make sure we're getting the best quality out of our people and our curriculum, or we are going to fall behind and people aren't going to use our products anymore.
You're absolutely right. And in terms of whether or not school districts need to be more flexible and nimble if school choice exists, it's certainly true. School districts need to be able to make quicker changes based on the quality of teachers and not based on, last in, first out, seniority, and what the teacher's contract says. Unfortunately, that's, a difficult process to change.
See, I think it would be a situation, school choice would benefit the teachers. It goes right along with my idea of competition then for the teachers to say, listen, I want you to paid well and paid on your merits. And
absolutely, we want good teachers to be paid well.
Right. Instead of, well, we're just going to pay all of you the same thing based on, how long you've been here, which class you teach, how much education, whatever else they can throw out there. Instead, based on your merits. I think it plays very well into ending collective bargaining for school teachers and saying we are going to do everything we can to open up for school choice, whether it's vouchers or other programs.
No, our goal, though, is not necessarily directly tied to what happens within a union and collective bargaining, but it really is just providing as many options to low and middle income families as possible so that they can send their kids to better schools. And in Ohio, there are 3 school choice programs as well as charter schools that let parents make those choices. Unfortunately, a lot of those programs are almost maxed out, and they need to expand them.
What are the 3 systems we have here in the Buckeye State?
Well, you have obviously public schools, which parents can choose. You have the Ed Choice program, which allows kids who are in failing public schools, schools that are on academic emergency, to go to private schools using vouchers. You have an autism scholarship program, a voucher program for kids with autism, and then kids in Cleveland have a scholarship program as well. So those are the 3 programs. Ed Choice is the largest. Unfortunately, it's capped at 14,000 kids. There are a little bit more than 13,000 in it this year. The enrollment period is happening right now as we speak. And what needs to happen is that program needs to be expanded so more kids can go to better schools.
Well, when it comes to the kids that have the option, if they're in academic emergency, to leave, what you're doing is saying, okay, if it's really bad, then you can leave, as opposed to, hey, you do okay, but maybe you'd like to go to a better school or improve. What we do, as long as nobody's failing, as long as it's not the bottom of the barrel, then it's okay. I say you should always be trying to strive for more in a better school, better teachers.
Absolutely. You should always strive for, choice for low and middle income families so that they can make a decision about where to send their kids to school. I think that lifts all ships in terms of educational quality and providing parents with options. But the Ed Choice program has worked very well. The academic performance is good. Parents love the program. There's enormous interest in it. So for what we've got, let's increase it.
Now, what is the program for the autistic kids?
It's called the Autism Scholarship Program, and it allows children with autism to receive scholarships to attend private schools. Now, what we see across the country, and you'll read this in the School Choice Yearbook, is that these scholarship programs for children with special needs are highly popular, and there are 7 of them operating across the country right now.
See, but the problem is with the one for the autistic kids in the state. What about every other special needs kid? Now, I'm in favor of school choice, but I'm saying, okay, you just give it to them?
Well, many states, like, for example, Florida, has the McKay Scholarship Program for children with disabilities, and that program applies to every child who gets an individualized education plan. So certainly there's interest in, expanding special needs scholarship programs across the country to include kids who have more than one disability.
I say, just first of all, it should be all kids, but if you're going to say it based on, kids with disabilities, then at least make it all disabilities as opposed to just autism. Now, what about the Cleveland? What's the system that they have?
That is a program for low-income children who can receive scholarships to go to better schools. So that's a traditional voucher program.
Is that based through Cleveland Public Schools?
I believe it's state-funded, but yes, it's in Cleveland schools, and kids can go to private schools as a result of receiving vouchers there. Okay,
see, I got a problem with that. I'm for school choice. I just hate how they've divided these things up, and I'm pointing out the flaws in the fact that there's only a couple of these programs, or a few of them. In Cleveland, if you're telling me that's state-funded, that means our tax dollars here are going to low-income students in Cleveland. What about the low-income students in Cincinnati Public Schools or any other school district?
Well, I think you bring up a good point and a good argument for expanding school choice into more areas to reach more kids across the state. Certainly, we want more school choice and not less.
Florida is probably doing best as far as any state goes with school choice, the number of programs, the kids, the freedom they have, the flexibility.
They have 2 really good programs. They have a corporate scholarship tax credit program, meaning corporations fund the scholarships. And as a result, those corporations get tax credits. They also have a special needs voucher program, which is highly popular. Both of those programs are statewide. Both of those programs are extremely in demand by parents. So, we're seeing great results out of Florida, and they have 54,000 kids served.
What was the other program they have? The first one is the corporate scholarships?
And the other one is the McKay Scholarship for Students with Disabilities.
Okay, that's the disability one. Why are these from corporate dollars? Again, I think it's a good thing to for kids to have the choice, But why haven't we gotten to the point where we just say, instead of corporations ponying up other money for the scholarships, that we're just allowed to use our tax dollars to send our kids to the best school?
Yeah, good point. And in Florida, there's a special situation where the state constitution of the state Supreme Court has said that, voucher programs in the form that it was created originally, which was the A-plus program, was not adherent to the Florida Constitution, so they had to switch it over to a corporate scholarship tax credit program. Unfortunately, some states have very restrictive clauses in their constitutions that many people think prohibit vouchers. So as a result of those, there is a need to provide kids with options, and they allow corporations to fund the scholarships, and then the corporations get a tax credit off their state income taxes.
What is the basis for the argument about them being unconstitutional? Obviously, every state constitution is different, but I'm guessing there's probably a common thread of it's unfair to some citizens or something, poor areas.
It's considered a Blaine Amendment, which is a throwback to the 1800s with James G. Blaine and the anti-religious, arguments against Catholics. Actually, they said we don't want any money going to Catholic schools, so they put in these highly restrictive and very broad rules in state constitutions that said no money can go to a religious entity whatsoever. Now, people are construing vouchers in some cases as being money to a religious entity, even though we view it as money to parents to make a decision about where they send their kids to school. They can send them to a secular school, a religious school, independent school, doesn't matter. So that's our view. Other people view it differently.
Yeah, you're right. I would say the same thing, even if they said, well, all right, you can send them to a private school. You can use those tax dollars. You just can't send it to a religious school. That would fall in line. But to say all of them are out then, and I do agree with you. I mean, you should be able to send it if you want a religious education for your kid or not.
And the Supreme Court agrees. The Supreme Court in 2002, Zellman versus Simmons-Harris, they said, if it's an appropriately designed school choice program, appropriately designed voucher program where parents can choose from a religious or a non-religious school, then it's constitutional. But these state constitutions sometimes have some challenges. Luckily, Ohio doesn't have a state constitutional issue.
Well, then let's go ahead and break it open. Let's get it done. We got a session now.
The governor has said that he wants to expand the Ed Choice program, and there, I believe, is legislation introduced to do just that. So hopefully, given the makeup of the political landscape in Ohio, we will see dramatic increases in school choice programs next year, hopefully.
All right. Thank you so much, Andrew Campanella, co-author of America's Hope for America's Children, School Choice Yearbook 2010 through 2011, and also part of the Alliance for School Choice.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, and I'll put a link to your information at my blog, 700WLW.com, brought to you by the American Trading Company. See, when it comes to the religious angle of, well, we don't want tax dollars going to religious schools, and okay, it was anti-Catholic at one time, that's fine. But we've told the public schools that they've got to be devoid of anything that is religious-based. Okay, fine. So someone wants to send their kid to a religious school because that's something they find important. They're not trying to push it on public schools. They're not saying all kids need to be taught this stuff. They're saying, I just want to take my kid, put him in a non-parochial school, a religious school, and say, we want that type of education. We want to put them in a parochial school, not a secular school. We want this type of education for them. We still put our tax dollars out there. We're not asking it in the secular schools, in the public schools, to teach that type of material. But I want to send my kid to that type of school. It's right down the street. It's right over there. Why should I have to pay more money for that? I'm already paying for everybody else's kids. That's one of the flaws with public education. And I think as we talk about teachers getting collective bargaining or not, how we're going to fund them, you got cuts at some schools, it is time we put all of this stuff on the table. Instead of just saying we're going to continue to have these brick and mortar schools at the end of your street, and then when that kid moves on and goes up to high school, he goes to the regional high school that is down in another part. Done. Let's get rid of some of that stuff. Do some of the stuff online, make some classes available for the kids, let parents make the decision where they want to send their kid. No, you don't have to provide busing for it if you don't want to. But if a parent wants to say, listen, I'm willing to get up in the morning and drive my kids 45 minutes across town because that's the better school, and they require X number of dollars, and I have X number of dollars, let me go ahead and do that. But it should be X number of dollars on top of the money they pay for everybody else's kid? No, that doesn't make sense. It's Doc Thompson, 700 WLW. Fox 19 Storm Tracker forecast for meteorologist Frank Marzullo. You got heavy rain developing by your commute home this afternoon when you're listening to Sloaney and Tracy. Afternoon high around 48. Flood watch continues overnight with a low around 35. It's 41 right now at the big one. Sharon and Mason, you're on the air.
Hey, Doc, how you doing today?
How you doing?
Good. Hey, listen, actually, I heard a comment the other day that, somebody said, well, they shouldn't use government money for private schools. And I thought, well, whose money is the government? It's our money.
Right.
And we should have a choice as to where we want our money to go to educate our children. And when they talk about that ridiculous argument, there's no argument. And I also wanted to say, I did listen this morning. Brian Thomas had a state rep on, and she said that there is a bill that's going to be introduced next month regarding a voucher program, a new voucher program. It's going to have an income threshold on it, but I guess it's going to be a huge step. Hopefully they can continue to make it, available to everybody, but it's a step in the right direction.
What would the income level be?
She did not say. She didn't really have all the specifications. I'm going to try to get that information. I'll send it to you on that bill. I don't even know what the bill number is at this point. But she also said and stated that there is going to be a rally in Columbus next month for school choice, and I think she said it was the 24th, but I'd have to check that too. So these are, there's some huge, huge steps going towards school choice, and I'm really excited about it.
I hope there are. I hope people finally start figuring this out. We all put money up, and I'm not suggesting that some people don't have to put money or it's all completely privately funded, which you can make an argument for that, pay for your own kids, whatever. I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying right now we all put up money for public education. Mm-hmm. And any child in the state, and every state is this way, has a right to an education funded with that money that is put up by all of us.
Exactly.
I'm not suggesting we change that. I'm saying that money that's out there, at least allow the parents some control to say, this school district sucks. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, look at Wisconsin and Madison, a 47% graduation rate, and 2/3 of the 8th graders cannot read. Yet those same people were out there marching and saying, we need these teachers. But you're not doing it. It's not getting done, Sharon.
No, it's not, and it's really sad. Our children are definitely, suffering, and as far as for their future, and we really need to really loudly, promote school choice as a way to help our kids. And one other thing I would like to tell you is that on March the 14th, I have arranged for Jeff Reed and Pete Beck to come to the Warren County Tea Party meeting to speak on school choice. So anybody that would like to get more information on it, will be March the 14th at Warren County Fairgrounds Grandstand at 7 o'clock.
Well, I appreciate the information. Keep me posted, and I'll remind everybody as we get a little bit closer.
Thanks, Doc. Have a great day.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Now, wouldn't it be great if those parents who had kids in the high schools in Madison who are failing that miserably or the kids are being failed by the system, by the administrators, the educators, the rules, the regulations, the curriculum, everything that is the district that those kids go to in Madison. If that parent could say, you know what, I'm not putting up with this. I'm simply going to put my kid in that school that does a better job. Why is that such a difficult concept? Why is that so horrible? Now, normally when you suggest stuff like this, when it comes to funding schools and public education, it becomes a class warfare thing. You get people in poor areas saying, well, we need extra dollars because we don't have the same income level and our kids are suffering. Meanwhile, those kids in the rich neighborhoods, they're getting a better education because they have these big, beautiful schools and all of these extra things. This isn't like that. This would level the playing field. You're in a poor neighborhood? Guess what? Put your kids in a richer school. Put your kids in a school that does better. Take the tax dollars and go. Who would be opposed to that? The only people that I can see who are opposed to it, not the teachers, but the administrators there that lose some control and actually have to go out there and face competition. That they no longer have this little world that they've created that they are supreme ruler of. They actually get competition. And if you still want to get those tax dollars coming to your schools, you've got to perform. You've got to put up or go away. You have got to bring the education or you're not going to be there. So, of course, those administrators, the superintendents, they don't want to actually have to be in competition. I think most of the teachers would probably welcome it. Welcome the opportunity to have that competition. The unions, of course, are not going to. Then we talk about getting rid of collective bargaining for school teachers. And I say, listen, the free market will actually take care of them. They'd have the opportunity to make more, to have some more control, because it would be competition. They'd be able to say, I'm going to go over to this school instead. School choice goes along with that perfectly, because you theoretically would have more schools out there and better schools as they're in competition, because parents say, I'm now putting them in that school because this school sucks now. Kids failing, I'm going to put them over there. I want a kid that learns more, an education that's based more on science. That school has a better science program. I'm putting him in there. So I think the unions are afraid of it. Superintendents and administrators are afraid of it. But I think the teachers that are on the front line that would benefit from this, I think they would probably be in support of school choice. We're going to find out how Ohio stacks up with a gentleman from the Buckey Institute, and your calls coming up on 700 WL. Coming up today on The Big Show with Bill Cunningham, NAAC President Christopher Smitherman joins Bill on the air. It will be webcammed as well, 700WLW.com. I have heard throughout this debate on teachers and collective bargaining, Wisconsin, Columbus, New York, California, all over the place, that it's about the children. In fact, I saw a picture of some people protesting in Columbus last week. Several of the teachers had signs that said, save the schools, save the children, save education, all of these things. But what we're talking about is collective bargaining in the union. What does that have to do with the school? For a long time, I've said it has very little to do with the school. That has to do with the union. And I've tried to make that distinction, that those teachers protesting are protesting on their own behalf. Not for the kids. They put that on the sign, but that's just good marketing to get you all, what about the children? Why don't you care about the kids? And it's not about that. As proof, this is not just my opinion. This is proof. I offer you audio proof now of what the teachers' unions stand for, what they are really about. I reached back into the archives, July 2009, at a National Education Association's annual meeting. Their retiring top lawyer, Bob Chanin, laid the entire thing out. It's not about the kids. It's about them.
And that brings me to my final and most important point, which is why, at least in my opinion, NEA and its affiliates are such effective advocates. Despite what some among us would like to believe, it is not because of our creative ideas.
Oh.
It is not because of the merit of our positions. It is not because we care about children, and it is not because we have a vision of a great public school for every child. NEA and its affiliates are effective advocates because we have power. And we have power because there are more than 3.2 million people who are willing to pay us hundreds of millions of dollars in dues each year because they believe that we are the unions that can most effectively represent them, the unions that can protect their rights and advance their interests as education employees.
He's not alone in his thinking. You hear their cheering? They agree. Power, money, their interests. That's what it's about. The union.
This is not to say that the concern of NEA and its affiliates with closing achievement gaps, reducing dropout rates, improving teacher quality, and the like are unimportant or inappropriate. To the contrary, these are the goals that guide the work we do. But they need not and must not be achieved at the expense of due process, employee rights and collective bargaining. That simply is too high a price to pay.
Wait a minute. Collective bargaining is too high of a price to pay for the education of the children? Do you understand what he said there? He was saying that we care about all those things, sure, after he laid out what they were really about, and then said, but collective bargaining rights, getting rid of too high of a price to pay to actually educate the children. Matt Meyer joins me now from the Buckey Institute. How are you, Matt?
I'm great. How are you?
That's pretty shocking audio there, wouldn't you say?
Well, you didn't even play the best part of that audio, which was when he goes on and says when kids start paying union dues, we'll care about the kids. I mean, that's the worst part of that clip that you didn't even play. So the guy goes on and makes even a more bald statement that goes to the heart of what the union cares about, which is its dues-paying members in power, not the kids.
It's just good marketing when they're in Columbus and hold up the signs, I guess, and say, save the kids, save the schools, education, all of that stuff.
Yeah, it is good marketing, and kudos to them for hiring somebody to come up with all that great talking point stuff. But the reality that is, and I talked about this in my testimony, where the 613 school districts in Ohio are projecting a collective deficit by 2015 of $7.6 billion. 96% of revenue at that time will be swallowed by compensation packages. So you either have to raise property taxes by about $8 billion on homeowners, which that's, by the way, thank God they get to vote on those things, and they're not going to vote to do that, or you got to tackle the compensation problems, which nobody wants to do, and collective bargaining will simply not allow you to do. No matter how much the union wants to say, oh, they'll negotiate, they will not negotiate pay cuts in the degree needed to balance these budgets without having huge tax increases on property owners across Ohio.
What do teachers make in the state? How do we compare with other states? Are they underpaid, about right, overpaid?
Well, from district to district, it depends. I mean, in your suburban and urban centers, teachers in Ohio are paid really well. In some rural areas, you probably have teachers that aren't paid as well, just because the property tax base doesn't support the higher compensation stuff. But the fundamental issue is, no matter how you look at it, and this is what we do on our website, where you can look at what these folks are really making, is because, remember, they have a contractual limitation of working 1,350 hours a year. Now, I know they say, oh, we take work home and we work on weekends, but everybody else does too, and we always use the 2,080-hour standard work year to look at their wages. But when you prorate the teachers to, if they made what they made, and you amortize that up to a 2,080-hour work year, which is what the rest of us work, many teachers are well into six figures in terms of compensation. So they get paid really well for what they do, and that's fine, but we can't afford it when we have 600,000 fewer private sector taxpayers than we did 10 years ago in Ohio, paying for a same-sized government in terms of employees that cost a whole lot more than it did 10 years ago.
What are the changes to SB 5? Have you familiarized yourself with the amendments they made?
I think we have not yet seen them, but the big picture is that, one, they've given up on taking collective bargaining rights from state workers in higher ed, so we're going to let those folks collectively bargain still.
In only higher education?
Higher ed and state workers.
Oh,
that
okay.
was the original bill that now they've said, oh, well, we're going to go ahead and concede on that. And now it's all going to be focused on trying to restrict them to bargaining over just wages, which would include, I assume, step increases, longevity pay, and all that stuff that drives costs higher and higher. And so what the changes do is essentially walk back a bit from what Senator Jones was going to try to do with SB 5 in an attempt to try to get something through the Senate, because I guess we've got a handful of conservative senators that I guess aren't that conservative.
Yeah, I've made that argument already. I mean, if this is something you believe in and, you should be voting for it. And it's like, well, but I'm in a district that, I may not get elected. It's a swing district. It's kind of close. It's not as conservative. I don't understand what that has to do with it. And I would say the same thing if you have very liberal or progressive beliefs. Go ahead, do what you're supposed to do. Don't just say, well, I may not get reelected. That's part of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, the focus on reelection is a problem, but, I hate to break it to these folks. Since 1989, the labor unions have spent $500 billion on elections, 2 times more than big oil, pharma, real estate, insurance, industries, all those guys combined. I mean, they're the single largest campaign group in the country, and 96% of that money went to candidates on the left. So I don't really care what they think they're going to get out of compromising, but I can tell you it's not going to somehow make them become supported by the labor unions. It ain't going to happen. But look, I don't really care too much about the election stuff. I'm about actually getting reforms done to fix Ohio. And that's where we focus our time and energy.
Well, that's what I find so frustrating in this entire thing is we all know the dirty little secret, the conflict of interest that, okay, the progressive candidates get in after being supported by the labor union with, in many cases, forced dues from members, in some cases, who don't want to be a part of the union. Then those dollars get the people elected. Then they get in, and what do? They pass policies and do everything they can to support the labor unions. I mean, it is a definite conflict of interest that everybody knows exists. Everybody knows the other flaws when it comes to the public employee unions, where bad employees are not, disciplined or fired in many cases. No union members come out and say, no, Bob should go because he's a bad employee. There is no self-policing by that union. Everyone just kind of pretends like it doesn't happen. So then when you have an argument on collective bargaining, everybody's shocked. It's for the children. How dare you? It's like, no, you guys are, all this other stuff is happening.
Yeah, but that's a political process. I don't begrudge the unions from using the election system to get folks that they like into office, and then those folks paying back their contributors in the way they do. I mean, that's politics. My problem is this: conservatives have always seemed to lack the political resolve to do what liberal progressives routinely do. In 1983, they jammed through collective bargaining, pure Democrat votes. And here we are, opportunity to change that, and again, don't have the result to do that. What we always have the result to do, thankfully, is to cut taxes. But other than that, the only result we ever show is to grow government, Medicaid Part D being the best example, where we rallied around that to increase government. And that's the more fundamental problem is that conservatives get elected, and we lose the resolve to actually get the stuff done, and we negotiate against ourselves in the whole process. And what we end up getting is, reform like that we put the label bold on, that fundamentally doesn't bend the cost curve that we need to bend in order to get government aligned to the revenues, the new normal that is Ohio's economy today.
Matt Meyer from the Buckey Institute. Can you hang on real quick? I want to get a quick break in here. I want to come back and ask you about some of the retiree benefits, retirement benefits that some get. It looks like some people seem to get a pretty modest retirement, and others are actually becoming millionaires. I want to get your take on it coming up next. 700 WL. Doc Thompson at 700 WLW. Matt Meyer from the Buckey Institute's with me. Matt, it seems when I talk to the police and firefighters, they tell me that they make a modest living. And that seems to be pretty accurate. And a lot of them even point to their retirements, and they seem pretty modest as well. I don't think they're getting rich. But then I see these stories of some retirees actually becoming millionaires. And I know you had the report out, Dipped in Gold, last year. How is that happening?
Because there's a program that's a fairly secretive program called the Deferred Retirement Options Plan for firefighters and police officers, and mostly upper-level folks, where when they hit a certain year, they're allowed to enter this program. And what happens is they take their pension that they would have gotten and they stick it in a private account, and then they guarantee roughly 8% growth per year over the next kind of 8 years, essentially. And then at the end of that, they really do retire. And so what happens is two things. One, they get this lump sum payment that was in this account that in many cases is well over $1 million. And then in addition to that, their pension is up to as if it was the ninth year of their retirement rather than the first year. And with the COLAs, it pushes some of them into essentially six-figure pensions. And so that's how we get public service millionaires. And the thing to keep in mind, whether it's the police and fire pension or any of the other pensions in the unions, is that they're very misleading on the whole retirement thing because they give you the average pension is X. What they don't tell you is a couple of things. One, that includes disability and survivors, which are lower. Two, it also includes people that got to the minimum level of service. They worked for the state for 5 years, and so they get a very, very small pension. Well, that obviously brings the overall number way down. And three, that also includes, people that are like 80 years old, that they truly were part of the grand bargain before it changed. The math is pretty easy on this. The formulas are public. We put them on our website. You plug in their highest 3 years, which is their average, and you get what the pension's going to be. So when you ask them, well, what is the average for your 30-year retiree? You get a very different number that is far from being a decent pension. It is a gold-plated pension that simply is unavailable to the rest of Ohioans because it's not affordable, and there's a reason why it's not affordable and has been abandoned in the private sector except in largely unionized companies.
So if the millionaire ones, the first ones you were talking about with the drop program and that, you said that's only available primarily to upper management, to the upper levels?
It's open to anybody who essentially hits the mid-20s of service in the police and fire service. And you've got lots of folks that don't make it that high. But, of course, your upper-level folks, your ranking guys, lieutenants and all those folks, and, of course, your superintendents and chiefs of police and that are going to be there for quite some time, they obviously are hitting that magic number, and that's where you see these just enormous payouts.
See, I would think that would be pretty frustrating to the rank and file.
I think we've heard from rank and file that agree that it's ridiculous, and they know that it paints a horrible picture for them. So it's one of those things where it's we can't afford it. They know we can't afford it, and they know that it looks incredibly problematic when you see these chiefs retire with huge payouts. And then you also have the issue of the banking of leave, and Columbus had 77 police and firefighters retire who on average got a $55,000 payout for banked leave. One guy had over $250,000 payout. That's the kind of stuff that, again, not available to the private sector. Got to change it. Good luck changing that with the unions on the other side of the table.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt Meyer, Mayor of the Buckey Institute.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, sir. Yeah, see, that's the problem. I would hope that you'd have the rank and file during this discussion coming out and saying, listen, stuff like that's wrong. They say, well, we just want to make our living. We want to be safe in that. Okay, I'll give you that. Well, call out things like this. You know those things are going on. We had a case there in Cincinnati. There was a long-serving police lieutenant. 10,600 hours of leave he stored up. Okay, it was his leave. I don't have a problem with that. Amounted to 5 years, worth over $430,000. 10 police supervisors in line to retire accumulated leave at a value of more than $200,000. But as I mentioned before, some of that comes with that leave is valued at what that guy is making now, not when he accumulated that leave, which may have been, 1/10 of it. He might have been making $25,000 a year when he accumulated that. Now he's making $100,000 a year. Call this stuff out. It's Doc Thompson, 700 WL. All right, we get some calls coming up on this whole dipped in gold, the upper management, some public employees just retiring millionaires. See, your service is not in question here. As we discussed this whole thing, your service is not in question. The importance, or in some cases, the dangers of your job, that's not in question. You as an individual doing a good job, not in question. Some of these programs are. And what I would like to see during this discussion, you gain some credibility, not about your service, not about the dangers of your jobs, the importance of your job, you gaining some credibility during this whole discussion about the unions. And that credibility could be gained for me if you started calling out some of these programs where these people retire millionaires. Some of these arguments I've laid out, when you call them out and call out the bad employees, then I'll say, wow, they get it. But until then, you're losing credibility with stuff like that. It's Doc Thompson, home of the Reds, 700 WLW.